What is up, Boolean YouTubers? I want to show you today a little bit behind the scenes on this new project that we've been working on that we're calling Paint OS. This is a behind the scenes look at how we have developed this new project management system for painting companies. And this particular conversation that I want to show you is a conversation that we had with Jason Parish, who is a very successful painting business owner and also the founder of Aleph Holdings that has a stake in over 10 different painting companies. And these are all very good sized painting companies in the $10 million range. So we hired Jason to come in and audit our systems, look at our data and our processes that we were reconstructing for this Paint OS software, and analyze what is the perfect architecture of the data that's going to be the backbone of this Paint OS system. So I'm super excited about Paint OS and this new system that we've built. And I wanted to show all of you that are interested how, this is a glimpse at one of the conversations that we had with an expert to discuss the nuances of property types and objects and which objects can be related to each other and how do you take a job and which one should be a project, what are you scheduling and what's the start and end date and what are the implications of that, where do invoices get associated, are they at the job level or the project level, and if you have different roles, what are those roles in a painting company and all that stuff. So this is a very in-depth look. This is, like, I would say, approaching the nerdy level, if not already way beyond. So if you are not someone that loves just data and understanding the logistics, I would say probably skip this video. But if you want to know a little more in depth on how do we build the things that we build, it all starts with a really strong data blueprint. And this is an in-depth conversation with an expert in the painting industry, Jason Parish, of us discussing this. So this is a two-part conversation. This is the first part that I'm going to show you in this video, and then we'll be posting the other video shortly in a few weeks or so. So dial in, sit back, grab your popcorn, and when you're driving or working out, and listen to this conversation with Jason Parish. All right, so I've done I made a document here, and I have a couple of specific questions, but
I saw that was helpful to put that in the event.
Yeah, I've been adding stuff, but basically I went through and started, this is kind of like my documentation of, at this point we had basically, just because we've gotten a lot of, like, pushback's the wrong word, but just like confusion on, like, wait, what's an event? So basically since I'm rebuilding everything, I'm just adopting what you guys do, which is jobs, or customers have jobs and those have projects.
Sure.
And it's very in line with just the language that everybody uses. What's the job number? What's the project number? What's the project type? Instead of having like event types that are project, it just was like, I just scrapped that. So that's the order that we're going with. One thing that I think is unique about this setup is that we're still using HubSpot as like a core CRM.
Yep.
And you guys have built your CRM it's basically one system that's everything in one, right?
Yep.
So there's like pros and cons to that in my mind.
Yep.
One of the cons basically in HubSpot, you're restricted to companies, contacts, deals. And so deals are essentially the representation for the sales team of an opportunity that you're going to bid. So the way I'm building this is we're using Paint Scout for estimating. And so every Paint Scout quote is associated to a deal in HubSpot. Okay. And then there's also a company cam project that is kind of like a triangulation of those three things all exist in tandem.
Okay.
And then when it gets one in HubSpot, it becomes a job in Airtable.
Yep.
And then once it's in Airtable, if someone wants to split it into multiple projects, they can. But it's all still the same job, which is tied to the same job in HubSpot.
The project splitting has been a friction point that can be a challenge. Not saying it's not overcomable, but I think it's kind of one of the big premises on this is that you are customizing the project management portion of this, knowing that you can plug together the sales components, like the pre and post. So that I don't know if that's a solvable issue. Well,
so I'll tell you if I'm teaching someone how to use the system of softwares, I would say bid your like your Paint Scout quotes should be project type quotes. So like I would not recommend doing like, if you have a full interior and a full exterior, just do 2 Paint Scout quotes, which is going to be 2 HubSpot deals, which is 2 jobs.
What if it's an exterior with a wash and carpentry repairs though?
Yeah, so that's where I would say in the
gonna be-
past, I used to say it's 3 quotes, like whatever, every project type is its own.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me, especially from the customer perspective. If it's $500 of carpentry, just throw it in as like it's an exterior bid. And then when we go to schedule it, we'll break it up.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like, it's just a kind of a judgment call. But the main thought or realization that I have, and I wanted to confirm with you, is that when we talk about job costing, or what was my gross profit on a project, all job costing is going to happen at the project level. So that means hours are logged there, expenses are logged there. Everything is tied to a project, but then you have the ability to roll that up to the job, because it's easy to roll stuff up and not
also roll up into project type, which I think would answer some of the questions I saw in the calendar notes.
Wait, you say roll up to project type?
Yep. So you've got project. This is just different layers of reporting. All the raw data is in the project level.
Yep.
And then that, I don't know if roll up is the right word. It can report into the project type level.
Yeah, but you're saying like, how do we do on all of our exteriors?
Yeah, or like all 3 warranties on this job.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think that is exactly, to me, I'm thinking in terms of objects, and project type is just a property of the project object, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So because we're, the projects is basically our one massive data set. That is where all reporting is going to come from, because it has everything imagined. That's where you assign job leaders and crew members, and everybody is assigned at the project level. That's like the massive all the way across. Okay, so then the other thing is, or a big thing, and this is, I think I don't know which one was my first question or not, but so you guys run a 100% subcontractor model, correct?
It's like 90%. Now we still have like a pretty good sized, I like to say we have like an employee, we have like a Slavic sized employee team.
Okay.
In our company.
Okay. Because I was going to say, basically, the idea of the job numbers, where you have the code for different things or different project types that get appended to the end of a job number. When you are doing punch list or warranties, you had said in the last one, anything is 6 or above. So if I'm just throwing out a random scenario that we came up with. So client Chris had a job done in January. September, he calls and says, hey, there's an issue with this. So that generates a warranty. And initially, let's say that this would be the, let's do this.
Yeah, I don't know how actually important the number is to be assigned to the project type. I think back, that was a pretty big deal for us when we were running Haven Builders. I don't know how big of a deal that is now in Paris Painting.
But the main thing is, or this is what I was thinking, if there's a warranty that's created like this, I would know this is the warranty warranty project number
for the job 24123. It's the first
one. Yeah. Is that how you guys do that? Or would you just say that this is actually like, number 6 or 7 or something?
It could go either way. I think we've done both. We've done both throughout the development of Wology. And I think ultimately it doesn't matter.
Okay, because then
you're coding the project type independent of the number eventually is where you eventually get to.
That you do what?
You actually code the project type. So I think we're going to go back on what I said last time. You're going to eventually code the project type independent of the hyphen number.
Yes, I agree with that.
Because you could have 3 power washes, 2 carpentries. I mean, not in reality, but in theory.
Yeah, and so that was another thing that we just got to is trying to find the.
Now there are patterns that emerge, right? It's like -1 is almost always the wash. -2 is always almost carpentry or exterior painting. 3, 4, 5 are like usually a punch or warranty because it's not.
So you're saying that the it's almost always, but basically your numbering is just sequential. Have
It's just
one, have
sequential.
7.
Right. Because it's uncommon that you're going to have power washing, carpentry, exterior paint, interior spray, and then you get to the punch. So you could say like, oh, like one is always power washing, unless it's an interior job. Then one is usually the interior painting. And then 2 is usually a punch list, because if we're doing interior painting, we're probably not doing anything else crazy.
Got it.
It's
Okay.
like rare that you're doing both project types on the same job level.
Got it. Because that's the other thing I was going to say is so you basically, because what I was thinking is that, and I'm trying to think of what would be the benefit of that.
I also, this is good. I'd say get to first principles reasoning on this too. Just because we do something some way doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And but I can at least we can talk through the why. You're pretty good at thinking through the pros and the cons.
Yeah, because the thing that I was initially in my head, and now I'm going back, like I guess the only thing that, like, logistically, what matters for the crew is that if I'm working on a project and I am doing, like, I'm an exterior crew, I just always know that I'm working on the -3 job number of whatever job I'm working on, as opposed to like if we had the project number, we could say has to incorporate the project code, which is INTP or EXTP or something, and then the numbers are just like the order in which they take place.
Sure. Yeah, the code is going to be easier for people to actually adopt.
The EXTP.
Yeah. You can tell them the numbers, and it's painting, and we're doing cleaners and.
Okay. So that's interesting, because then, basically every time you add, I think that makes sense to me. And then the other thing is that I was going back and forth on, it's basically like you just said. So we'd have the project type.
Yep.
And then you can still have an event type for the project. So it's what I did was standard, warranty, and punch list.
And you're going to want, because the project type correlates directly to the crew skill, or it's a labor source skill.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you have a punch project, you want to note that it's a punch project for metrics reporting, but you also want to make sure that you have identified it's an interior skill painting, interior project painting punch. So you get someone who has that skill type. There was a question in there about necessary fields for scheduling or for labor too. This is like, how complex are these businesses, and what's the juice versus the squeeze for intuition versus recall, or sorry, intuition versus recall versus reference. In the office, they can all use reference on the skill types and the badges. They probably 90% of the time are working off a recall at this point, right?
What does recall mean?
Recall means that I'm not referencing. Yeah, like I know that this crew can do this skill. There's nothing that I'm referencing that tells me that. I just know it.
Yeah.
And so in like theory land, we want to turn all of our recall into reference, so you can scale quicker. You can outsource.
Yeah.
But I just say in practice, the coordinators, they don't have to. Now, if we're scaling up or we have a crew turnover, it's like, all right, this coordinator needs a crew. All right, looks like they can send them this crew. All right, instead of being a phone call conversation with the project manager that takes 7 minutes of bandwidth, the coordinator can look at the reference badges on that crew and know what kind of projects they can schedule them.
Yes. Okay.
So that's the value to it. And then kind of like answering your question of complexity versus like usefulness.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that I guess jumping to that piece, I'll go back to here. I really like the idea. I love talking to you, because I feel like there's so many things that I've thought of. That I'm like, because I'm like an engineer nerd to the core, but then having been in the painting business, it's like you're saying, there's theory. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, but we're dealing with people, and like, let's be honest.
They run painting companies.
What's the person in the role? What's the person in the role going to do? And it's not because they're dumb or whatever. It's just like, they're just a human and they're like,
well, coordinators, yeah, the office admins, the coordinators are going to be your best friend when it comes to software development because they want that compliance. They want that. Like,
yes.
What are the rules? Why is nobody following the rules? What are the rules? How do I follow the rules? The sales reps, there's a reason why you need a manager for sales reps. It's either the president or the VP of sales.
Yeah.
And then project managers are really the eyes and the ears of the coordinators out there. And they're kind of feeding them real-time information.
So I mapped this out in two, or I've identified at least two. You might have another one, but I'm thinking of it in terms of there's project, like you said, project requirement and needs, and then there's the crew capabilities, basically. So it's like needs and capabilities, and then there's the decision for each one of the metrics. Do you do a scale from like a number line, 1 to 3, 1 to 5, something like that? Or do you do criteria, which is like a yes or no?
I think for the badges and skills, it's a yes or no. And then for the project requirements, it's going to be a gradient because the clients or the job sites can have, I know with communication, it's like 2 or 3. Communication is a gradient. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
Because
I feel like all of those could be binary. It's either like the client needs philosophical discussions. No, you probably want 3 options, like normal human, intense human, or super lax.
Yeah. So one
crazy job site, normal job site. You don't need to bring a step ladder.
Yeah.
Or like Victorian crazy.
And that's what. So yes, that's what I'm thinking about. Is like you basically define the extremes.
Yeah, I would do 3. Like 3 options. 5 is probably too many.
Yeah, but all we're doing is just defining like, and I personally like the idea of a funny description that's kind of we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's as opposed to saying like easy, like define easy, like they're not even going to be home. So like, okay, got it. So yeah, but basically if it's a gradient from 1 to 3 and 2 is just normal, so you pick 2 every time. Yep. You're really, all we want you to do as the sales rep is identify the outliers on either side and tell us when it happens. That's like your goal.
I want to put the right crew with your client needs.
Yeah.
So that they get a good experience. There's less issues, which means more margin, which should be tied into the salesperson's compensation. Higher net promoter score should be tied into their compensation as well.
So then the other thing is like, there's a quote from Steve Jobs, or I mean, many people have said it, but this is already pretty good. We've got 4 considerations. The timeline answers itself. It's like just when does it need to get done? That's easy. But there's 4 criteria right now. And I'm like, can we pack it down to 3 or 2?
Sure.
Because if you can, we should, just because like, again, 4 boxes to fill out every time is a big deal when you're doing this however many thousands of times a year, and also for the scheduling component, if you need to match up a crew skill, it just adds complexity to everything. So one question I had is, in your opinion, do you think that the job site like difficulty corresponds with the detail, in the sense of like, if I have a skilled painter, they probably are capable of lifts and ladders or whatever? Or is it like, no, in your experience, you can have someone that could crush? Because to me, like the Victorian 7 different color house, that's going to have scaffolding and other, like, there's just going to be more logistics, and that's a more skilled painter. And you're not going to have someone that's like, oh, I'm great with lifts, but give me 2 colors only. Right? Is that true or not? So, and if I was to combine that, basically like, what do you guys combine, and when do you think it should be separate? Because it's not 3 checkboxes is not crazy. I do think communication is its own thing, but then the other 2, I was like, is there a way to pack that into one? And that's a badge of some sort. So if you made it this far, I just want to jump in really quick to say, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. As you know, YouTube has the algorithm to make everything work, and it really helps the channel out a lot when you just take a second to like the video and subscribe. if you are a painting company or a fan of what we do here at Boolean. Thanks so much.
For sure, there are scenarios where they can be separated. I think when you talk about Steve Jobs, it's always like, but is it worth the squeeze? And that's where they do a great job of saying, like, here's how we're going to package our Mac. It's not going to work for people who are high-end gamers. It's not going to work for people who are like niche this, but for 80% of the people, it's going to be all that they want and simple enough. And I think you can make the argument for that. There are certain job sites where I remember when I was involved in production, I would send Nestor out there because he's just a cowboy and he will literally rappel off of a roof to have things get painted. But he is not a detail painter. He's not, he is a cowboy. He's a wild cowboy. And then I can picture him, but I don't know his name. Let's say it's Ricky. Ricky is like a little older, like top quality guy, always wants more money, but really high quality, but he's not going to put himself in jeopardy. He's not going to go on a really steep roof. So like the terrain component is like steep roofs, steep terrain, or like a drop off, or like a high, like, so like steep terrain, steep roof, or really high area. And so I would just say, like, could they be merged together? Yeah. Will that ever cause an issue? The only issue that we're trying to mitigate here is how do we maximize our resource of labor, of each labor bucket that we have. So if we have a painter that's really good at crazy stuff, but not good at detail work, how do we make sure that we keep him busy without booking up the high skill guy?
Yeah. So, okay. I think
that's like, I don't know if there's a right answer to that. That's going to be a preference of how much do you want to Apple it versus.
Yeah, I think that this, even just talking about that, it simplifies it more, because that's the other thing, is that I want something that I can explain to an employee one time and then they never get it wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, what's the difficulty level, what's the detail level, and what's the communication level? That to me makes, and I'm even going to change that to difficulty we're defining as steep terrain, roof drop off, and one is you don't need to bring a step ladder. Yep. And then the detail is all like that.
Difficulty is like, man, there's this guy who's kind of wild and I know he could do this. Because if it's a 3, it's like, I don't know if most crews would be down for this. Yeah. That might be really challenging for them. A 2 is like normal roofs and normal slopes. A 1, because this is like, you think you might have crews that are just 1s.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's too slopey, they might fall over and die. Like, you don't know.
Right.
Be really careful.
Okay. So I love that. That streamlines it in my head. Communication difficulty detail. That feels good.
Yeah.
Then the badges side. This was, I have one client that
that's a good one.
They do a lot of commercial stuff.
Sure.
And these clients are like, they have just a ridiculous checklist of, you have to be this certified and have a CPR class within the last decade. So they have all this stuff on their crews.
Yep.
And so that's another thing that I guess there would just be technically another box here that's just required certifications or something.
Yeah.
And
these are job level requirements.
Yeah. And it's just like a yes or no. Like, don't even show me the other stuff. It's like, I don't know, John's a 2, but he could probably do it. Whereas this is like, only show me the people that have these X, Y, and Z, right?
Yep.
And that's like the OSHA, lift, whatever, all those things. So that, this goes down at the bottom. Oops. And then
the badges, the badges are just, and you can add other stuff there, but they are the needs and the requirements.
You're saying badges is kind of all of this.
Yeah. I would actually change you don't have to change the word. So project requirements / needs, just say badges. And so it's just me talking through it. So you would name, like, this project has a badge requirement. Does this crew have that badge? So you think through that if you want to do it.
Yeah, I like that.
And then on the crew skills are just the project types. So do they have the skill of washing? Do they have the skill of carpentry, interior, exterior, spraying? So they have badges that correspond to what the sales rep has filled out, but then the actual type of project is their skill.
So you're saying the skills exterior cabinet washing, would you put in like lifts and scaffolding and things like that, or is that not a skill in your mind? Skills are more project type things.
Yeah, I haven't used the skill of scaffolding. I put that with the like level 3 difficulty.
And that would be, what would you call that? That's
That
like
would be a badge. So you would
that's a
have a
badge
communication badge, a difficulty badge, and a detail badge, and then maybe some certs.
and you have those same thing. We just call them the same thing on both crews and projects.
Yep.
And these are the badges.
Yep. Just like, so there's project badges, there's project skills, there's crew badges, crew skills. And then that's a good idea. We do have like a lead flag, we call it. So we'll flag jobs as lead. Crews have to have the lead badge to be able to work on lead jobs. It sets off a whole sequence of compliance.
For language. So language would just like,
that's probably,
can you speak English, and how well is different in my mind than like communication level.
Yeah.
But are they close enough that it's like, because like this of like, do you speak English or not? I feel like needs to be combined with some level of like, I could have people that are great at like they're American, but they're just not good communicators.
If you put them with a level 3 client, it's going to be a tough fit.
Yeah. So it's like, do we just like, what's the way to combine that into one? And do we call it communication, which is like, you could have an American person that's still like a 1 just because they don't communicate well.
Yeah.
But a 3 would be, you speak fluent English.
Nobody's there.
What's that?
Yeah. 1 is like, they have no communication needs. They're not going to be talking about you. They don't care, or they're not there. 2 is normal conversations. Like, you have to have at least ESL, and you have to be a somewhat normal American speaker. 3 is like, those clients that are going to need someone to talk to, and you better have somebody on site they can talk to, otherwise they're calling you.
And then maybe just say like, I don't know, what's the better way to say it, instead of insulting someone, because they would know what they are on all these, right?
1 is like
basic.
Just focus on painting. I don't know. Like, not great. I don't know what the answer is to that.
Painter first.
Yep. Paint, not talk. Painting. Yeah. I don't know. I have to think through that.
Okay. So communication, we're going to wrap that into this. And then so again, the difficulty again that you think is the same exact thing. They're just, what's the capabilities of the crew?
Yep.
Detail, that's the same thing.
Yep. That's where like you could merge this and just say it's your call. Yeah, you could say crew / project badges. It's the same badge.
And each one, that are just a direct correlation. Yep. And then the skills, that's just like, I could have like cabinet painting is a really high skill.
Sure.
And so that's just a requirement that would either show or not show.
Yep. And again, what is the why behind this? It's to turn that intuition into a process, that recall into reference, for when you want to have people execute in your organization, not be beholden to only Sally knows how to do this. Yes. Yeah. Otherwise,
exactly. The whole idea of the people.
Otherwise, Sally can look at every job site and be like, yeah, I can just tell what this is. And I was based off what I see in this email chain, I can flag this client, and I know she's going to be a great fit for this crew. And Sally,
I've talked to many people when we're dissecting processes.
Yeah.
The schedulers in particular, many of them are not, I don't know if it's a fear of losing their job or a fear of not being valued, but they say like, when you're asking like, so tell me how you do your job. They're like, oh, geez, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, there's so many things I have to think about. And it's like, okay, let's turn it into a process. And they're like, well, I mean, there's like 25 different things that could happen on. It's like, okay, yeah, that personality. And we need to make sure that there's a system around it, because they're going to get sick one day.
Yep. Or you might want to outgrow that person's capacity.
And maybe that's what they fear. And it's the very thing that's going
It's a
to
very comfortable
ensure.
spot to be a crucial cog in a chaotic business.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be a quote. It's a very comfortable spot. That's a good. Okay, and then next question. This idea of I honestly feel like these are things that I could ask a dozen business owners and they would be like, I don't know why that matters, but you'll know why. You'll understand this.
Sure.
So the next thing is project type starts, or we have our job, it's an exterior, one project type, and we start working on it, and then whatever reason we have to call the crews off and we're delayed for 3 weeks, a month, for indefinite period of time. So the job is basically on hold, but at some point we have to pick that back up, and we don't want a project that's just indefinitely on the calendar when it's not actually happening.
It's not active because the crew is actually somewhere else.
Right. So, and we also need to know, like, obviously there's not going to be any hours logged. So it's not like we're worried about billing in the short term because they're not doing it, but just on the schedule, we cut it off and then we pick it up. So in that situation, do you just basically say, all right, now, whenever it does start, you just create another project and it's now -2. And is it just that simple?
Yeah. And you would break out the revenue based off of a broad, is it 50% done, 25% done, or 75% done?
And then you move the revenue to the new project.
Move revenue to the new project. Because that, for a number of reasons, will have an impact. You want to know, what is your production capacity? What do you have scheduled to complete? What have you already completed?
Yes.
What's scheduled on the wall? What's ready on the wall?
Okay. So
That is
basically
not an ideal scenario, but when it happens, just the discipline of split the project into two. No, we don't know to the dollar what is the revenue that's been produced, but just eyeball it.
Yeah. And
create it
so
to a new
that the
project.
other that actually, or as I'm thinking about this, the idea or the thing that I was getting caught on, which I would now is clear to me, is this. I basically had this hyphen number was literally an exact duplicate data point of the project type. And then we were missing a sequential aspect. And if we have a sequential aspect, which is the number.
Then you got like the number, and then you could do like -2 A, B, C, D, E for sequencing, but there's a million different ways to solve it. But I think just sequential numbers is pretty easy.
Yeah. And then I didn't catch that you said it before, but it's the idea of -1 is often power washing, but it might not be.
And to be fair, I might have said it the other way. I'm pretty sure I said it the other way in our last call because I was thinking through what we did in Haven Builders.
Yeah.
And I just know in painting, we're like, no, it's not that important.
Yeah. Okay. As far as job costing and stuff goes, you are, because that's one of the things for all of our reports are going to be built on projects.
Yep.
So if I want to tell you the amount of revenue that we have scheduled in a given month, we're looking at what's the how the projects that are in that month and what's the revenue. So it is critical to break apart and say it's a $10,000 project. We're probably 30% of the way through. So I'm just going to put $3,000 in the first one. And there's $7,000 still to be produced at some later date that we don't know yet.
And then you could, you'd want to put it in that project. And now where's that project go? We have visible buckets in our UI, which is it's either unscheduled and you need to schedule it, or it's on hold, meaning I can't schedule it yet. I'm waiting on some critical piece of information, or you go ahead and you schedule it for a future date.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, while we're talking about that, these are I don't know if we mentioned this last time, but what do you think of these? And is there anything else that you would?
In progress, completed. Job cost is good. Canceled, on hold. Unscheduled for us has been a bucket. And I don't know if it still needs to be, or if that's just a carryover from when I was doing scheduling. It used to be a task that I would wait to do.
Would you have a new thing and unscheduled, or turn new and unscheduled?
It's new. You can't schedule a job until you get the contract in deposit.
Mm-hmm.
Ready would be another status.
Ready, and that's after scheduled.
After scheduled, before in progress, and then you get to say how you define ready. But for us, I believe it's contract deposit, colors are settled, options are settled. Client has been notified of the start date and crew has accepted the work order.
Okay. Because the other one, I used to have these together, but I realized breaking them out is more logical just because of sequentially they could be in different orders. But we have, and you're actually making me think maybe there's a color status potentially, because that sometimes can be a rabbit hole trying to track down. But there's project status, which to me is like that's pretty logical. It's new. It's scheduled. Well, the difference between new and unscheduled potentially would be just like new is like you've never looked at this before. Get your eyes on it. Make sure you wrap your head around.
Also, it's not ready to schedule. Meaning, like, well, I don't know if it's even new then, too. So it depends on what is your gate for becoming new. Like for us,
new is after it got won. So sales wins it and it comes over.
Sales wins it, but we don't have the contractor deposit yet, so it can't be scheduled.
Yeah, so that would be over here is the financial status. I've sent the invoice. It's still sitting in the new stage. I've now got the deposit paid, and then if it's new and deposits paid, then I can schedule.
Yeah, you got it.
And then partial invoice sent, partial payment paid, final invoice paid in full. I'm trying to decide, do I associate invoices to the project object or the job object? So if you do it to the project object, then you're potentially sending like 2 or 3 deposit invoices to the same customer.
You don't want that.
Yeah. So should I just make the job, that is the, like if you have a job with multiple projects, you're only paying one deposit, and then we do progress payments on the job as projects get completed.
Right. But it's from the job.
Yeah. So
you're not sending invoices from projects.
Yeah. Okay. And you agree with that.
We're painting.
Yeah.
It's giving me flashbacks to remodeling.
What's that?
It's giving me flashbacks to remodeling invoices. We would do those on level, but
so then what have you found is necessary to put on? And I'm sure different businesses have different requirements, but what's like the 80-20 of details on an invoice? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like their address. So I don't know, for painting, we just do deposit. I think we just do deposit and final. And then in some cases, a progress.
Yeah.
But it's pretty rare. I'd say it's uncommon that we would do progress payments. It's like something has been delayed. Or maybe there's a punch list that can't be completed until next year. We'll run into that. We'll run into those in the next month. It's like, this job is 90% done. We got to go do these touch-ups, but now it's too cold. So we're going to hold back $500, and we'll collect the $500 once we do this touch-up.
Okay. So what was my other one? Project types. What's up, Nate?
What's up, Nate?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's a great day to have a great day.
You guys making progress?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get my Stripe invoices, Nate?
Did I get your Stripe invoice?
Hopefully. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to do this, so let me know if you don't, because I don't know if it works.
Did
you guys should help me figure out how to do Stripe. You're the tech guys.
Yeah, dude.
We use Stripe for our software.
Yeah, is it a good choice?
It's the most popular in the SaaS world.
Yeah.
It's like reliable. There's, depending upon it's probably like there's most likely cheaper, like just lower complexity tools that just, like, for example, QuickBooks is fine for invoicing.
I feel like it's the same cost for QuickBooks.
Yeah, it's the complexity of Stripe, I think, is just, it's another thing. You still got to have a QuickBooks to integrate it with and all that, So and then back to this, just clarifying the question. So with warranty projects, basically there can be as many warranty projects or project type projects, whatever, because it's just a sequential number and you can go past 10.
Right.
You just keep counting up.
Yeah. And there will be patterns that emerge, but it's not always going to be the case.
Yeah. So Nate, one thing, basically the hyphen number is not directly tied to a project type. It's literally just a sequential count of whatever events happen on the project.
Oh,
so it's just.
So during the summer, it'll typically be 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
In the winter, it's usually just a 1 or maybe a 1-2. And then you have
So
your
one
unique
is just usually power washing, but it could be an interior. It just depends.
Yep.
But we're just not using the sequential number in the project number for anything other than just which event was this.
Gotcha.
Which makes sense.
And then you put the code behind it, what type of power washer curve. Yeah.
And some decides it on punch. Okay, so now back to this billback concept. So the way that this I have this opened up here, because if you had a W-2 crew that was doing a project, do you also give them the option to have like your special projects team go do touch-ups for them?
I don't think so. I mean, you could. Yeah. I'd say theoretically, yeah, that's fine, but it's like hard to hold back people's. And the W-2 guys are they are project based, but they're mostly paid hourly.
That's exactly what we were just talking about yesterday. We were like,
wait a minute,
how do someone says they work 20 hours and you're like, okay, cool. Well, I'm taking $60 away from your next paycheck.
Right.
It's
a budget system where it's like, here's 80 hours to do a job. You finish it in 60, you get 20 extra hours of comp. We're going to take back 2 for the previous job. We screwed something up. So they would work in like a subcontractor model, but for employees would be the budget system. But
and that's how you do pay them?
We do, but it's just, I just tell you, they're employees for a reason. They're not like out there super motivated and crushing budgets.
Because do you encourage people to become subs if they're capable?
I think that's a great path for people. I don't know if we are actively like encouraging. I think we're happy. There's also a place for employees in our business model and for our type of jobs that we take on. There's some jobs where it's like we need to send our employees out there. The subs aren't going to be a great fit, or you need to have this recurring stream of employees that are ready to do warranties or punches or when there's a gap in your skill types for subs.
So this is just to clarify, we were talking about this yesterday. If Nathan's a subcontractor, we pay him $1,000 to complete project 1, which he does. Then he starts project 2, which is worth $2,000. There's a touch up or punch list on project 1, and it ends up being like Nathan tells us to send the guy back. So we'll say that for this purpose, these were the hours right here for the punch list job.
Yep.
So the hours come in and it says they worked 3.75 hours. This Elijah guy did. And then we have the wage, but we also have the burden.
Yep. It cost me $20 an hour.
Right. But so the payroll wages were $61.88. And then there was an additional, the taxes, fees, whatever, was $12.38. So the total cost for that time was whatever that is, $73, $74.
Yep.
That's what Nathan's payment on his project 2 is reduced by.
It is, but on the reporting for project 2,
it still goes back to project 1.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's like the one nuance you want to make sure you catch. Otherwise it is, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. And that's the way that this is all going to work, is that it's tied. The hours that Elijah logged are going to get tied to the project, the warranty project or the Road Haven project. We're just separately tracking. And my thought right now is, and I don't know if this is you might not even be involved in logistically how this happens, but the way I'm thinking about it is that there's a compensation table that's going to it's a ledger of when Nathan completes a project. There's a $1,000 record for the project that's his earnings. And then when there's a punch list that's completed, we take the cost of that punch list. And I guess if it was done by Nathan, there wouldn't be a record of a punch list anyways, right? Or you would do it, but just wouldn't have a
cost. Yeah, we wouldn't have a cost. You'd want to track that there was a punch list generated and that he spent his time there that day.
Because do you track time for your subs?
No, but you track the
event,
independently scheduled labor efforts.
Yeah. Okay.
This is like something that can start getting deep into it of like, well, how many days was this sub active? And it's like, well, a scenario we talked through earlier, if you had a schedule that, or a project that, it's active here and active here, but you just scheduled it the whole time, so you want to break it into two things. It looks like that sub is very active, right? But that's not true. It started here, nothing happened, then they finished it. So it should be two separate projects. Or you might have a scenario where it's like, hey, there's this job, he did it, and then he was inactive for 3 days. Like, well, not really. He was actually hopping back to Punchlist jobs on his previous week, Thursday and Friday. So he's actually active, every single day this week. Because then that's important information to have, so you can identify what the key problems are in your production capacity. You're saying, yes, we have the capacity, but our crews are not engaged every single day. That's a different thing than to say, we have the crews, they're engaged every day, we need more crews. They're two different problems you can solve. And you can be tricked into trying to solve the wrong problem with the wrong data.
Yep. And then as far as commissions go for sales reps, I'm treating it the exact same way, where there's basically a record of commissions. And so we track what was the original project that this commission's tied to, what was the total amount. And then the company is going to decide, are you doing commissions based on gross sales, which is like the dumb, cheap way to do it, but it does work, or are you doing it tied to gross profit?
Yep.
And if it's tied to gross sales, the trigger to add a record to the commissions table would be when the job is won. If it's tied to gross profit, it would be when the job.
I would actually do it when it's produced, even, because you don't know.
You'd what?
I would say once it's been either produced or collected, we do when collected, even if you did the top line revenue number.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that it wouldn't be until it's job costed. Like the project has to be job costed, and then I know what to pay you, because that's like it's all done.
Yeah. In either scenario, though.
Oh, you're saying that
because you might win the job, we book it, this is great, but never gets produced.
Yeah. And some people, my thought there is the same thing like with a bill back.
Yeah.
There's
You can have a true up at the end of the year.
Yeah. So if there's a canceled job, then we reduce that back out in a separate record.
Yeah.
But what is your preferred method of compensation for sales reps?
Cost on margin.
Cost on margin. So walk me through that.
So a sales rep's compensation, it's modeled off of what does it cost for us to acquire $1 of margin. So that takes in both the marketing and the sales cost. So if we produce a job, let's say it's a $3,000 job, and we profit $1,000 of, let's say that's the gross margin. The cost of margin should be like $350 to acquire that $1,000 of margin. That $350 has to be for the marketing and the sales wages.
35%.
Yep. Now we model of the margin, not of the revenue. Now we'll model out at the beginning of the year what we expect to spend on marketing versus averages, and then kind of like, well, let's build that in the model. And then, sales reps, if you are selling at a high job ticket size, your marketing dollars per margin may actually be going down quite a bit, and you're going to get to keep that savings. If you're only selling small jobs, it's going to hurt you. Same thing with your
marketing cost.
It costs more to feed that sales rep. It also incentivizes sales reps to do what's been really impactful the last couple of years, which are the hustle tactics, where they're the ones generating their appointments. If they go and generate an appointment, that saves them anywhere from $150 to $350 per appointment, right? That they get to keep because they're the ones that are doing that networking.
How do you figure in the cost of marketing per job? Like, is it live, or you just pick choose an average?
The average total spend for the year, and then whether we schedule the appointment or they schedule the appointment. Yeah.
When you say whether you did or they did schedule the appointment, you mean like, is this a self-generated lead?
Right. Because if they self-generate the lead, that's something that did not cost marketing dollars, at least not directly. And I do know that they differentiate between like lead generating marketing and brand promotion marketing. Right. There's marketing that's just done for awareness and brand promotion. There's also marketing that's done for a specific call to action to generate leads. Yeah, sales reps aligned to cost on margin. They're not over promising. I mean, it's really easy to sell when you make a lot of promises and don't charge a lot. That's like, could send my daughter out there with her little bluey backpack and a couple of proposals. And as long as she made a lot of promises and didn't charge much, she would sell paint jobs. But the skill is setting appropriate expectations that align with what we can actually produce, and then charging them a fair amount where we're profitable for it. That is the scale. That is the skill of sales for them to do that. It just helps align all the incentives, right? They're probably more likely to fill out those badge types that we're talking about. Right? Like, hey, this is kind of annoying. There's 3 different badge types. Why would I do this? Well, if we assign the wrong crew to it, your margin could tank, and that's what your commissions are based off of.
Why not just do a percentage of GP?
It would miss out on the alignment to saving marketing dollars. So they could, it would be like, they might do a ton of appointments in a week, but it's costing you a lot because their SR is low. It's like, cool. I love that. I love your problem solving. You're like working harder because you've got a low sales skill. The company is ultimately losing in this scenario. We'd be better off employing somebody else. We don't have an aligned incentive. Your incentive is to just earn through estimates and maybe like do a 45-minute appointment because you know it's a numbers gain and you'll make more than if you were to spend 2 hours with them and actually like probe through their core needs. But you're kind of like, hey, I'm willing to do that churn method because at the end of the day, I can actually get more bids out. I might have a lower SR, but it's a higher volume game and I'm going to win. Unfortunately for the business, each one of those appointments cost dollars. We have misaligned incentives. And then the hustle thing, it's like, would you like to do hustle tactics? Like, no, thank you. Would you like to spend more money and fill my calendar? No, thank you. All right. We're both saying no, thank you. How do we turn this into a win?
So so you're saying you're doing it based on the cost of margin. So like down to the penny, how much does this sales rep get paid in your business?
I don't know, but I could find out.
But how, like, I'm just wondering, so.
That model?
Is it basically like the benchmark is 20%. So if you're at 20%, that's your base commission. And then like, you know what I'm saying? What's the formula to calculate? And so because we were at 35%, you get X.
Yeah. So you work it backwards from whatever you plan on spending on marketing for that year. And for us, I think marketing is a lot higher than it's ever been. I want to say it's like 9%, maybe 8%. So you'd say if it's 8% of revenue and your average and your jobs are 45% gross margin, then what is the amount that you can afford to spend on sales to still hit a 35% cost on margin?
So in that scenario, if you're at 8% marketing,
I just asked
spending $240 to acquire that lead, and so the salesperson would get paid $110 if it was a company generated lead.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
But if they generated that lead themselves, they would get paid $350.
You got it. Yep.
That's really interesting. 110.
What does it? Yeah, there's so many things that makes a ton of sense to me for everything that we're just talking about too. With like, if you can build, it's just like design the model that when there's alignment, removing friction, like arguments.
Those are the 2 arguments you'll run into, which is like, why don't you just book me more appointments? I don't have a high SR, but I'm willing to work hard. And then 2 is like, why don't you develop your skill or book your own appointments? And both sides are saying, because it's not in my best interest to do that. That's why.
Yeah.
But if you're both agreeing to compensate the sales rep and the marketing, it's a bucket. And salesperson, you're going to get a 35% cost on margin. You got to run your own business. Essentially, each sales rep has their own P&L, run your own business. You get paid whatever we got to spend more on or less on. And like, there's conversations as we go quarter to quarter and we hit a recession or don't hit a recession and things like that. But in general, you lay out in the beginning of the year. Then it's also, how much money do you want to make? Great. How do you want to do that? How does that work in the business model? It's never like, I think I should get a raise because I've been here a while.
And so you do say that the 35% cost on margin, that means that you're spending 35 cents to get $1 margin.
Of margin. Yep. Which would be.
And that's gross profit.
That's gross profit. Yep.
Yeah.
And we're at right now, we're at like 45% gross profit. So if you have $1, it'd be like whatever that is, $2.15 or some kind of divisional math of revenue.
Wait, say that right now you're at 45%.
So let's say it's 45%. So let's say 1 divided by 0.45. So it represents $2.22 of revenue.
$1. Yeah. $1.
$1 generates $2.
Let's say it's 50% margin for easy math.
Okay.
The 35 cents on the dollar of margin You could also say it's 35 cents on the $2 of revenue.
Yep.
If you want to do the dummy way, but you do the dummy way, now you don't have aligned incentives. But like that's how people can start to visualize, like, does this work in my business model?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so basically, I'm thinking from
Now you're looking like a 17%. Okay, this actually makes it a little. Then it'd be like 17% percent of revenue for marketing and sales. If your marketing is at 9, you can afford 8 for sales. And so, like, broad strokes, let's say the sales rep is generating $1 million or 1.5 million in revenue. Now they're making about 120 grand a year. Can you run a business off of that?
Got it. So basically, for a given project, the math or the formula that is processes when the job is complete would be, you've pre-programmed in what is our marketing spend for this time frame,
Yep.
right? So you
Yep.
would say our marketing spend is blank. And do you typically do that for the quarter, for the year, or update it monthly?
I don't know how Micah does that.
Okay.
I've never done that. I do know that he'll do true ups. So they might make an assumption based off like a monthly commission.
Mhm.
And then, the next quarter, it's like, hey, we are spending less this year, or now we're spending more this year. And we've got to true up what we thought the costs were, but now what they actually are to book your calendar. This is what
And
it
then
costs.
you would change retroactively, or you're just saying for moving
you
forward?
you true it up because it's based off of the year's budget.
Okay.
So you say, hey, we thought we were spending 17%. So we paid you. I mean, you could do it either way. This is like a personal, there's no right or wrong. You could say,
Yeah.
I paid you based off of this assumption that marketing was 5% and now it's 8%. So I can either, true it up, or I can just make this one hurt more this month.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess it's the same results either way.
Okay. And then, so yeah, basically I would say we just completed a $10,000 job. And so the math or the calculation would be our GP on that job was 45%. So we made $4,500. Let's say 50% again, easy math.
Yep.
It's 50%. So we made $5,000.
Yep.
Our marketing spend was 10% for the year, which means that on that job, we spent $1,000 to get it. And that leaves me
$4,000.
$4,000 of the remaining GP, right?
Yep.
And then I can decide we are going to pay
So
35% minus, so whatever. If 35% is the target, you would do 4,000 minus 3,500, and they would get $500. Is that right?
pretty close, I think. So $10,000 job, $5,000 of margin. 35% of that 5,000 is $1,750. We can afford to pay $1,750 in marketing and sales. It cost us, for broad stroke numbers, $1,000 to book that job in marketing costs. So now I have $750 to pay the sales rep. So yeah, 5K margin, 35% of that is $1,750. Whatever the marketing cost is, let's say it's $1,000. Now I have $750 left. That is the rep's total compensation. They've probably received a base up to this point. And so now I'm truing up their commission. Everybody's base is just a draw on future commissions.
Yeah.
And the marketing is a percentage of revenue as the calculation.
Yep. And it has to fall within the parameters. The sales rep and the marketing have to fall within that cost on margin parameter. And that is the job of the VP of sales to manage that. He's got marketing reporting to him. He's got sales reps reporting to him. Marketing, you have to make the right bets at the right time. Sales, you have to increase their skill. So they're selling profitable jobs that have a high ticket number and they're closing a good percentage of them.
Yeah.
Or you buy everybody pizza once a week and say, don't disappoint me. And they'll just do good work. Listen, guys, I'm going to motivate you through something called father figure approval. And you don't want to make me mad. Make me happy. I'll buy you pizza every week.
It works great, right?
And they'll say, but what's my cost on margin? You say, don't worry about it. I don't care. You don't care. We're here for the vibes.
There are large painting companies working
Run
on
off vibes.
Yeah.
If you can build a culture where people are like, you don't have to sales reps are probably most motivated by money, but not everybody is. And you can run an organization based off of culture and not aligned incentives. And there's nothing.
And you do project managers based on cost on margin too.
Same thing.
What's their percentage?
They're gross margin.
Per-
They're just gross margin.
Oh, they are just gross
Their
margin.
percentage of gross margin, and then net promoter score.
And what if you don't get NPS responses from people?
So it's you have to have 60% coverage for it to be a real number. So you got to get it, and then you just have your average per rep. So yeah, you have to have 60% coverage for it to be a real number for your company. And I guess a rep could get lucky or unlucky in that formula.
When you say rep, you mean manager or the sales rep?
Either one, because they both got
sales
NPS.
rep also get this factored in.
Yep, sales reps have NPS score bonuses that are paid out quarterly, as do project managers, as do coordinators. And let's say you do 100 clients, 60 of them get covered. You have 4 sales reps, and they got like 13 each for the first 4 or first 3, and then one of the sales reps just had a few of them, and like they were low. That's life. We only got a few of yours. Everybody else got good coverage. They got their averages, and your average was low. I don't know what you call your clients and get them to fill out the NPS score. I don't know what to tell you. Like that actually probably is the aligned incentive. You could argue and say like, no, like we don't have good coverage. We only got 60%, and now you only called 2 of my clients, and I did 10 of them, and the other 8 were super happy. We did the work.
And so you're saying that you don't. If I only had 50%, then I would say, okay, well, give me give me another 10% of your jobs to do the survey, and then you would be eligible for it.
So the company has to have 60%, is what I was saying. Like the company has to have 60% coverage. There are scenarios where not every individual is going to have 60% coverage, and that is fine for the company, doesn't care. But that individual might say like, hey, my score is artificially low because you didn't get a hold of everybody.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
and then
either everybody gets it or
them
not.
3 times.
Yeah, everybody is like getting calculated as long as the company does. Some rep might not get his bonus, and he's like, "That's not fair. I'm going to call these other people."
Yep.
And then
he's not getting his bonus because he individually didn't get 60% coverage.
Yeah,
he's getting his bonus because the 2 people that filled out the survey scored him low.
Yeah, got it. And then is that just a dollar figure per job, or just like $500 or something?
It's so the way that we do it, it's like if your score is like, I forget how the NPS even works, but if it's like a plus 100, you get $1,500. If it's like a plus 50, you get $1,000, another dollar amount. And if it's like that's it. I don't know, there's like 2 or 3, I think there's 3 tiers that we do.
And it's just budgeted in at the beginning of the year.
Like you hope that everybody hits their NPS score bonuses. If they don't, you're probably spending it somewhere else, like with client concessions or bad debt. I do have
yeah, we're at time, so
which is fine.
This is fantastic. Awesome. Thank you again.
Yeah, good luck, guys. It's a fun project to work on and put through, and you got a good mind for it.
We'll keep you posted. Thanks. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this was insightful and valuable to you. Stay tuned for the second part of the conversation with Jason Parish. And as always, if you have anything that you are curious about, don't hesitate to drop a comment down below. Like the video, subscribe. Thanks for watching.